O come, Emmanuel, and ransom captive Israel, that mourns in lonely exile here, until the Son of God appear. Rejoice, rejoice, Emmanuel shall come to thee, O Israel. The mournful beauty of traditional Advent hymns. Paradoxically, Advent begins with lament. In the language of biblical scholarship, a lament is a prayer to God for the help in time of need. The portion of Isaiah that was just read is an example of lament poetry. Isaiah's poem is a cry of pain, seeking understanding. Oh, that you would tear open the heavens and come down. Imagine, if you will, a prophet, and he is stomping mad. The year is approximately 500 BCE. The prophet and a remnant of his people have recently returned to their homeland after decades of captivity in Babylon. The prophet was likely born in captivity and grew up hearing stories of Israel's glorious past. These stories fueled hope for the prophet and his people. They believed that if they could just return to their homeland, everything would be all right. When the Jewish people finally did return home, they did not find that for which they had hoped and prayed. Instead of glory and honor, they found chaos, destruction, and despair. In ancient Israel, a prophet's main job was to talk to God. A prophet was to represent the people with God and to speak for God to the people. If you spend some time studying the writings of Jewish prophets, you will find that their ability to speak with any truth about God's will for the future rested in their deep and embodied knowledge of their people's history. So the prophet shakes his fist angrily at the heavens and demands that God reveal God's self just as God has done in the past. The prophet asks God to quake the mountains as God had done at Mount Sinai when God gave the law. The prophet begs God for even a burning bush, one like Moses had stumbled upon and known God's presence. The mountains did not quake for our prophet. He saw no burning bushes. But in the midst of his ranting, our prophet emptied himself of his nation's grief and anger. Only then were the people ready for hope. Hope is what's left when our worst fears have been realized and our self-help optimism has been extinguished. Hope is what comes to a broken heart, willing to be mended. Isaiah understood himself to be a part of a people chosen by God. Consequently, even in the midst of chaos and despair and what he perceived as God's silence, our prophet had hope. The story of the Israelites' return from captivity is an Advent story. This is a story of darkness and light. This is a story of despair and hope. This is our story. With mournful beauty, Advent acknowledges that there is darkness. People suffer and struggle. Life is fragile, and sometimes we fail. Sometimes others fail us. In Advent, we are reminded that Jesus, the light of a single candle, can pierce the darkness and scatter despair. The love of God found in Jesus Christ is with us always, whether our path is shrouded in darkness or basked in light. God is with us even to the end of the age. Like ancient Israel, we are a nation in need of lament. In response to the grand jury decision in Ferguson, Missouri, our bishop, Jeffrey Lee, wrote last week, For many people, there seems to be little justice and no peace in the decision of a St. Louis County grand jury not to indict Darren Wilson for the killing of Michael Brown. There is only lamentation. We don't do lament very well in our society, but I believe that is what is called for now. Michael Brown's killing is not an anomaly or a statistical outlier. His death is the direct product of deadly tensions born from decades of housing discrimination, white flight, intergenerational poverty, and racial profiling in Ferguson. Yet this is not just Ferguson's problem or Missouri's problem. This is a national problem. In Ferguson, and in too often everywhere else, young black men are perceived only as threats, not as human beings made in the image of God. Benjamin Watson, a football player for the New Orleans Saints, posted his thoughts on the Ferguson grand jury decision on Facebook. His post has since gone viral. Watson's post sounds like the lament of a modern-day prophet. He writes of being angry, frustrated, fearful, and sad, of being offended, confused, and hopeless. Yet, Watson concludes his post by writing of his hope, and he says, "I'm encouraged because ultimately the problem is not a skin problem. It is a sin problem. Sin is the reason we rebel against authority. Sin is the reason we abuse our authority. Sin is the reason we are racist, prejudiced, and lie to cover for our own. Sin is the reason we riot, loot, and burn. But I am encouraged because God has provided a solution for sin in his Son, Jesus, and with it, a transformed heart and mind. One that's capable of looking past the outward and seeing what's truly important in every human being. The cure for the Michael Brown, Trayvon Martin, Tamir Rice, and Eric Garner tragedies is not education or exposure. It is the gospel, because the gospel gives mankind hope. Jesus Christ, the light of a single candle, can pierce the darkness and scatter despair. We all have laments. How can God allow natural disasters? When will God intervene to end systematic racism? Why didn't God stop me before I made such a mess of things? If God can do miracles, why won't God save my friend who is dying of cancer? Tear open the heavens and come down. We want the mountains to quake and the nations to tremble at God's presence. Instead, the sufferings of our day seem to be met with divine silence. Our past, our history can be a burden. Our culture likes to satirize this phenomenon, and we speak of carrying around our baggage. When we carry too much of our baggage, we cannot see past it. We can be blind to the newness of the future and to the abundant and absurd grace found there. Isaiah was so busy looking for quaking mountains and burning bushes that he could not see that God is also found in the sound of sheer silence, in the touch of a friend's hand, and in the birth of a child. So we begin with lament. We need to shake our fist at heaven. It feels good. We need to empty ourselves of our anger, hurt, guilt, and loss. We need to make room for hope. God desires space in our lives, in our nation, and in our world to come among us. Lament leaves us empty, ready for God. The light of a single candle can pierce the darkness and scatter despair. Oh, come, desire of nations, bind in one the hearts of all mankind. Bid thou our sad divisions cease, and be thyself our King of peace. Rejoice, rejoice, Emmanuel.